What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another page of the playbook. This is Nate coming at you guys with another offseason in the 32 NFL offseasons in 32 days. Today's team, third straight AFC South team. We're going to talk about those Jacksonville Jaguars. Before we get into today's video, guys, I just want to give a special shout out to today's sponsors, starting with Gold Fine and Bowles, lawyers for the injured. Personal injury, workers' compensation, those are their two things, but any sort of legal advice, they're the people to call. Give them a phone call, 309-673-5144. Tell them we sent you, okay? And I'd also like to shout out SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video as well. Use promo code PlaybookSports on their website to get $20 off your first purchase of $30 or more. Let's get back to the video. All right, let's talk about last year, Jags fans. You guys went into the year with a ton of hype. I was all on the Jacksonville Jaguars hype train. I was driving that bus, baby. But very disappointing year for them, honestly. Trevor Lawrence took kind of a step back, it seems like. They started out the year 8-3, and then the wheels just completely fell off. Lost 4 straight, and then losing a game in Week 18. Win and get in against the Tennessee Titans. Losing that game. Inexcusable way to end the season. A real bummer. I mean, just all around a disappointing year for the Jaguars. So what have they done this offseason to try to reclaim the AFC South crown? Try and take a step back, a step in the right direction, honestly. Just to try and get last year's taste out of their mouth. Let's talk about it. Coaching changes. Obviously, someone had to be the fall guy. Somebody had to go down with you when you collapse like that and you're 8-3 and you finish 9-8, winning the Gary Kubiak Till I Collapse Award, which is prestigious. Defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell is the one who ended up taking the fall here. I don't know if I'd go as far to blame it all on him. On the season, the defense was number 16 in points per game allowed. However, you can see down the stretch where they fell apart. They allowed 34, 31, 23, 30, 0, which was against the Panthers, so it doesn't count, and 28. That's not going to be good enough when you're basically allowing 30-plus points a game. It's not going to be good enough. So to replace him, they brought in Falcons defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen, who really did do a pretty decent job with the Falcons last year, especially with Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates playing at an all-pro caliber level, although he was already very good. There were a few games last year, though, when they got absolutely lit up by not very good teams. See Week 17 and 18 for the Falcons, which makes me think maybe this is more of a lateral move at defensive coordinator and not exactly an upgrade. I guess time will tell. Let's talk free agency. Let's go free agency losses first, and we're going to start with wide receiver Calvin Ridley, who actually went to those Tennessee Titans on a huge contract, 4 years, $92 million. Great business by Jacksonville to not try to match this contract. That is way too much money. I'm sorry. There is no way Calvin Ridley is worth $92 million over 4 years. $23 million a year for Calvin Ridley, who hasn't been a 1 since he was a number 2 for Atlanta. I don't love that. Absolutely not. There's the door. Mr. Ridley, don't let it hit you on the way out. Thanks for your time here. And then they also let Darius Williams walk as he signed a free agent deal with the Rams, a 3-year deal. Now this one hurts, because the cornerback depth on this team is non-existent. Right now, listed as a second-string corner. So if one corner goes down, this is the guy. Safety, Darnell Savage is listed as a second-string corner right now. That's how dire the situation is in Jacksonville when it comes to that cornerback room. That is so bad. That's so bad. So while I agree maybe you don't want to pay an older player a ton of cash, when you have such bad depth at that position, it hurts to lose a guy who played a ton of snaps for you. Players they brought in, though, hopefully they did something here. Best thing they did this offseason for sure was locking up stud pass rusher Josh Allen to a mega extension. 5 years, $141 million. Man, that is a ton of cash. But coming off of a 17-sack season, a guy that they drafted, you absolutely could not afford to let him walk this offseason, especially if you want to look your fans in the face and tell them, yes, we still want to be competitive. You could not let him go. Jags made some pretty good additions in free agency as well, I would say, trying to maximize the rest of Lawrence's rookie contract. They brought in defensive lineman Eric Armstead in a 3-year, $43 million deal. I like the move to continue to beef up that defensive line. The three of Armstead, Trayvon Walker, who will hopefully take another step in his development, and Josh Allen is a pretty solid defensive line. I also like the veteran addition of center Mitch Morse, who will be the day one starting center. Very solid player. I'm sure Buffalo hated to see him walk, and the Jags definitely needed offensive line help as Trevor Lawrence was sacked a ton last year, was constantly having to improvise with his legs. You kind of felt like he lost a little bit of confidence in the pass protection, and when you start losing confidence in your pass protection, you start getting happy feet in the pocket and you start missing throws. You've got to feel protected, and Mitch Morse will be a good addition to that offensive line. Also brought in cornerback Ronald Darby, thank God, because they have nobody at the position, so they had to get somebody that can actually play the position. So at least he's a vet that can play. We've seen him do it. Is he a little on the older side? Sure, but it's a body that can play corner. I can't complain about that. I did hate the addition of Gabe Davis. I'm on the record of saying that. I think this was a terrible contract, one of my least favorite free agent signings of the entire period. He had 4 games last year as the number 2 receiver in the offense with Josh Allen throwing the ball, an inarguable top 3 quarterback in the NFL throwing him the ball. He had 4 games last year where he had literally nothing. Literally 0 catches for 0 yards. Healthy. Played the entire game. Didn't catch the ball a single time. He has way too many games like that where he's non-existent. Occasionally he'll have a great game, but if you're praying that you get the Gabe Davis that went crazy against Kansas City in the playoffs all those years ago, you are going to be very disappointed. Paying him $13 million a year seems insane to me. I do not like that one. So I will say overall, this free agency period kind of close to a net even. You lose Calvin Ridley and you lose cornerback Darius Williams, but you replace the corner and you bring in a solid defensive lineman. So I'm going talent-wise, I'm going net even in free agency, which takes us to the NFL draft where surely they address corner, right? Nope. After trading down from pick number 17, at pick 23, the Jaguars selected LSU wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr., who was one of my favorite prospects throughout the entire draft process. An absolute stud. Great size, 6'3", 6'4", 4.3 speed. That's insane. The guy can absolutely fly, and he's taller than you. He's going to go up and get it. A great player. I really think Trevor Lawrence will love him, and he provides a deep threat on the Jaguars team. Christian Kirk's a good intermediate guy. They've got a solid tight end in Evan Ingram. They needed a guy that can stretch the field, and that's Brian Thomas Jr. for sure. However, if they had just stayed at pick 17, they could have taken the best corner in the class. This was a perfect scenario for them. They didn't have to move up. All of the corners fell to them. They had their pick of the litter, and they didn't seem to address that. They have pass catchers, but they didn't have any good corners. They could have gotten an elite cornerback prospect in Quinion Mitchell or even Terrion Arnold, whichever one you prefer, and they passed. So I'm not sure about that move. I may love Brian Thomas Jr., but I don't know if I love the fit here. I don't, especially when they add someone like Gabe Davis, who does a lot of the similar things as Brian Thomas Jr. Why would you bring in Gabe Davis then if you're going to take this wide receiver who is assuredly going to be there for you at pick 17 when you desperately need a corner? I just don't know about that. And then they took in the second round, they took defensive lineman Mason Smith out of LSU, who I do like as a prospect, but he's more of a project. I had a third round grade on him, not middle of the second round on him. I'm sure though that Trent Baalke took him because of his insane arm length. That's such a Trent Baalke move. It's unbelievable. He's just all about the measurables. And look at Trayvon Walker a couple seasons ago when he could have had Aiden Hutchinson, who has clearly been the best defensive lineman from that draft class. But Trayvon Walker had all the measurables that Trent Baalke just cannot get enough of. So maybe that will work out. I think that was early as well. I am on the minority. I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority on this one, but I like Jarrian Jones out of Florida State. Unfortunately, I do think that there's a world where he's leaned on early because they just don't have any depth at the cornerback position. I don't think he'll be ready for that, and I'm worried it'll stunt his growth. A lot like Noah Igbenogany several years in Miami. Needed a season to learn. Had to play week 2, week 3 against Stephon Diggs and cover Stephon Diggs, and he got absolutely cooked, and he never was confident in himself again. Never showed any confidence. Please do not ruin Jarrian Jones because I think he has a good chance. I also like the pick of Javon Foster in the 4th round. Very strong run blocker, fires off the ball well, might be a starter for them. But outside of that, not a ton of value down the board. I think I'm going to be a little harsh here, Jags fans. I'm sorry. The glaring need on this team is cornerback, and they could have had the best one in the class. And like I said, instead of that, they took a guy that plays very similar to free agent addition Gabe Davis, who you're paying a ton of money to. And like I said, I love Brian Thomas Jr., the player. I hate the fit here. I really do. To be him, he's going to step in and be you took a number 3 receiver, and you could have had a number 1 corner on your team. That blows my mind. I just think that that's kind of an organizational failure, truthfully. And Mason Smith was not the best defensive tackle still available at that spot. There were plenty of guys that I would have taken over him for sure. And I didn't see a ton of value down the board. I did not like this draft from Trent Baalke. I just must disagree with him fundamentally, which is fine. We can have disagreements. But for this draft, I'm giving them a C-, which I believe is the lowest graded draft so far for me. So not a great look, Jags fans. I'm sorry. Honestly, overall this offseason, I just don't know. I don't love it. I don't love what I'm seeing. The two teams I just got done talking about, the Colts and the Texans, who were on par with the Jags last year, right? Very similar records, and the Colts did it without their quarterback, and the Texans did it while they were implementing a brand new scheme, offensively and defensively. They both had significantly better off seasons than the Jags have had. They have both improved at multiple spots, and I don't know if I can say that about the Jaguars. I don't know if I can say it about them. I'm glad they kept Josh Allen. That was a good move. And again, I love Brian Thomas Jr., but wow, they're going to get picked on. They're going to get picked on. That defense is going to get absolutely cooked because you don't have corners who can cover at all. I just don't feel like they improved a ton, and I don't love the draft class. So for their off season, I'm going to give them a C. And that feels a little nice. Honestly, I could see myself feeling like, that's a little generous. Maybe a C- is appropriate here. I'm going to roll with a C and hope that before the season they can add some corner depth, and this will make their offseason a true C. But you could argue C-, and I don't have a whole lot to say about it. So that's all I've got for you guys on the Jacksonville Jaguars 2024 NFL offseason. We'll see you guys tomorrow when we talk about the reigning Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs.